What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot to talk to you about today with Tropical Storm Chantal as it approaches the Carolinas. A more probable landfall at this current point, in my opinion, is parts of northern South Carolina and southern North Carolina, potentially near the Wilmington area. As we continue to take a look at this, Chantal is continuing to organize at a pretty decent pace. It is currently expected to be stronger than originally anticipated, and we have all the information that we have right here from Chantal from the National Hurricane Center. So here's what we have going on right here. Maximum sustained winds as of right now for Chantal are at 45 miles per hour. This was a tropical depression the last time we talked about this, or at least starting to become a tropical depression. Minimum central pressure has fallen to 1,006 millibars. Its location is currently at 31.6 degrees north, is 78.7 degrees west, and it's moving north at 3 miles per hour, so it's practically stalling over the Gulf Stream right here. And that's a big concern I have over there, mainly because of the amount of warm water that this is sitting over. Tropical storm warnings are in effect from the South Santee River in South Carolina to Surf City, North Carolina, ladies and gentlemen. That's actually where I used to vacation, so at least the area that's going on there is under a tropical storm warning. We can go ahead and show you what we have in the warnings with the cone. You're looking at tropical storm conditions past the Wilmington area around Myrtle Beach and those areas as well to pay attention to. Taking a quick look at the peak surge at this current point, 1 to 3 feet of surge is expected from the South Santee River all the way to Surf City over here. So surge isn't going to be particularly a big issue with this, I would argue, but wind could be a bigger issue than anticipated, and we'll keep you updated on that. But surge won't be a big issue, but what will be a bit concerning is the rip currents that are going to be coming with this, if this can actually pull up. It's taking its sweet time uploading right there, but ultimately, if we take a quick look at the map, I guess they do not have the map, unfortunately, but we'll figure that out later. But at this current point, if we go ahead and go back to the public advisory to show you this right here, it's taking a second to load. I do apologize for that. And here we go. This is a relatively decent-sized storm, actually. Tropical storm force winds extend outward 105 miles from the center, primarily to the east of it, and we can kind of show you that from the cone as well. It's kind of more eastern lopsided at this current point, as there is a little bit of shear that this system is battling, but it's also going to take some time to organize because the shear has decreased considerably over the last few hours, so we're going to have to pay attention to that. Let's go ahead and quickly read the discussion. Has been organizing and gaining strength. The storm is still asymmetric, though, with most of its associated showers and thunderstorms located near and to the east of the center. The Air Force hurricane hunters are currently investigating the system and have found the pressure has dropped to 1,000 millibars at 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The plane has yet to sample the area of strong thunderstorms where the highest winds are likely occurring. That's why they held it in 35 knots or 40 miles per hour until 2 p.m. The outer rain bands are beginning to reach portions of South and North Carolina, and conditions along the coast within the watch and warning areas are expected to continue to deteriorate throughout the day. Let's go ahead now and pull up the Hurricane Hunter aircraft reconnaissance right here. And we got that right here. So here's what we have going on. It has finished. The recon is over. But what they did find was at least flight level winds cracking 50 knots. I believe 52 knots in this part of the region right here in those convective thunderstorms right there. That would be supportive of around 50 mile per hour winds at this current point, because 50 knot winds is about 57.5 miles per hour, or 58 if you round up. You deduct that by 0.1, you take 10% off of it, and you're left with the result as you blend both the flight levels and SFMR values. So this is, at least according to aircraft reconnaissance, as of recently, at least either a 45 or 50 mile per hour hurricane based on this data. I personally think this is around 50 miles per hour at this current point in time, but we'll have to wait and see what the official advisory and what the official NHC advisory goes for at 5 p.m. I think they're going to either hold at 45 or increase to 50. We'll have to see how that pans out going forward. But with that being said, let's go ahead and go back to the discussion and read a little more. Chantal has barely moved since last night, but a motion to the north-northwest is expected to begin soon. The main steering features appear to be a mid to low upper level low over the Gulf and a narrow mid-level ridge across the mid-Atlantic region. The flow between these features should cause Chantal to move inland over South Carolina Sunday morning. It should be noted that the center reformations are possible, which could cause some erratic motion. And I do want to stress this actually because I've been talking to Kaiser, the tropical team in Storms United has been staying on top of this. It looks like the center is trying to relocate its center, at least more so into the convection, from what I have been seeing and from what other people have been noting. As well. Kaiser said it right here in the chat. Chantal is relocating again. It's trying to relocate actually near all that convection, and we'll show you radar as well to kind of give you an understanding of what we're potentially looking at as well. The NHC forecast track lies close to the previous one with the latest solutions right there. But before we get into all these models right here, I do want to go ahead and pull up the radar scope very quickly just to kind of show you what potentially may be going on. Actually, no, we don't need to pull up radar scope. We can actually pull up an image right here, that we can take a quick look at and analyze. So, okay, never mind. That's the wrong one. Fuck. Okay, never mind. Let's go ahead. Okay, never mind. Let's go ahead now and go finish this out. Additional strengthening seems likely in the short term as Chantal is expected to remain over warm water and move into a lower wind shear environment, and we'll show you that map in just a second. In addition, the shear direction is expected to shift from southwesterly to southerly, which is more conducive for strengthening. The NHC intensity forecast is a little higher than the previous one, in line with the HMON halves A and halves B guidance. After landfall, steady weakening is expected. The system's going to dissipate. Chantal is expected to remain a lopsided system during the next day or so. So that's kind of what we have. They're anticipating a 50-mile-per-hour peak. However, I personally think at this current point, given the rate of intensification and given the rate of organization, I would not rule out 60 miles per hour as a peak temporarily, like very quickly before it makes landfall. And then after that, we're going to have to see how that pans out. But I do want to go ahead and show you some conditions that I am worried about and we need to pay attention to. Charlie has been keeping an eye on the shear since this morning, and we can kind of give you an idea of what's been going on with that. Let's go ahead and pull up our wind shear map. And as you can see, the wind shear that was previously here from this trough that I was expecting to kind of move in and kind of cause some hindrance with Chantal, the wind shear in this region has completely collapsed. And yes, there is a little bit of wind shear to the east of it, but in a lot of the corners right here, it's in a relatively low wind shear environment. We're talking like 10 to 15 knots at this current point. This system has very low wind shear to deal with, and that's why I'm personally thinking a 60-mile-per-hour peak is possible with this system. Previously, I was thinking like 45 as a general peak and 50 as an absolute peak. Now I'm thinking 50 as a general peak and 60 as an absolute peak because the wind shear has completely collapsed. And now you have a situation where you have plenty of warm water over the Gulf Stream, 29 plus degrees Celsius, which is about 84 degrees Fahrenheit for those living in the U.S., and we can go ahead and show you this. This is where Chantal is right here, and this is where it's heading to. It's currently over 29 degrees Celsius waters, piping hot across parts of the Gulf Stream, kind of in the best conditions it has for early July. Right here that we're going to have to pay attention to. So by and large, what you're noticing is a situation where we have better conditions than what we were initially expecting with this system, and that's allowing the system to organize quicker, strengthen quicker, and do a lot of other things quicker as well. It's also in an area of moisture that is better than what the models were anticipating as well. So if the system can get its act together and a relocation of its center does happen closer to the convection, this system could continue to intensify and potentially get even stronger than what the forecasts are calling for. But we're going to not jump into speculation just yet with that. I do want to pay attention to a few other factors and a few other parameters to look at. I want to look at the satellite imagery very quickly just to kind of look at, okay, what's the convection looking like and how is this system panning out? So let's go ahead and move on to the Northwest Atlantic. If we can pull this up, it's going to take a second. I do apologize for that, but we can kind of at least wait for this system, this satellite imagery to load. worst case scenario, we just go to the DAPIA website for more in-depth analysis and start from there. Okay, the imagery here is not going to load. Thank you very much, Tropical Tidbits. I really appreciate it. But here's what we have going on. This is what we have from the DAPIA website. Seizure warning for those of you who are prone to flashing lights. As I'm trying to load this up. Oh man, everything is taking its time today. We'll have to see how this goes. But oh boy. Okay, we got this back. Let's go ahead and move on to Chantal, and then we'll get the visible imagery pulled up, and then we will hopefully pull the loop up. Worst case, we can just do a still image and kind of, okay, perfect. Seizure warning for those of you who are prone to flashing lights. I do apologize. This is going to take a while to load. I am sorry. We'll have to see how this works out. So, yeah, it looks like everything is slow today. Forecast models. Yeah, everything is slow today. Okay, we got both satellites working finally. It took a while to do that, so I had to pause the recording and then get to it. But here's the situation that we have. Starting with what's been going on for the last few hours, we've had noticeable bursts of deep convection that have been pretty persistent across a lot of these areas right here with Chantal. We're going to have to pay attention to it, at least until recently. The center of circulation was hovering just west of this convection right here. However, at least according to the latest satellite imagery, it looks like it may be relocating right here, and we'll go ahead and show you DAPIA in just a second, but I do want to emphasize a couple of things very quickly. Number one, the outflow that the system is currently kind of generating right here is being picked up by the shear, and it's really whipping. It's really allowing the system to breathe and intensify at a faster rate. Also noticing the wind shear to its southwest is also helping it as well. The outflow is really starting to churn out there towards the Caribbean, and that's something you're going to want to pay attention to. But this system, despite being lopsided, is pretty healthy based on what I'm seeing with the outflow returns and the deep convection. And taking a quick look at the water vapor imagery right here, it's in a pretty moist environment, contrary to what we were thinking would happen. We were thinking dry air would kind of intrude into this system. This is taking a while to show the later frames. I do apologize for it, but we'll just use this right here. Where it's at right now is actually in a pretty moist environment. Even in the boundary layer, where I would think maybe a little bit of dry air would be, is relatively moist at this current point. So you're looking at better than expected moisture conditions at this current point that we're going to want to pay attention to going forward. I am also noticing a little bit of a feature with some convection starting to pop up over here. We'll have to see how that pans out. And you can actually look at it even further with the DAPIA website right here showing you this. So taking a quick look at this minute-by-minute frame, what you're noticing, at least right here, is I'm taking a quick gander at this right here. Yeah, it is still pretty lopsided as it's approaching the Carolinas at this current point, very, very slowly. However, it looks like the center is trying to relocate, kind of what I'm seeing right here. I'm not noticing as big of a center of circulation around this area as I am starting to notice more so around parts of the deeper convection over here that we're going to have to pay attention to going forward. Depending on how this pans out and how this ends up battling it out, we'll have to see how this will ultimately go and where the system will make landfall, how strong it gets, and how healthy it'll be once it reaches land. So looking at all of that now, let's go ahead and show you some forecast models. We'll start with the HWRF, then go to the HMON, and then the rest of the runs. We'll start with the HWRF right here. HWRF has the system continuing to organize and strengthen as it makes its final approach to land. It is expected to make landfall near the South Santee River of South Carolina in the next 15 hours right here by Saturday night. They're expecting this. Rest of the runs are expecting this to be a little bit slower. The HWRF was originally anticipating this to be around 40 miles per hour, but we're already past the intensity at this current point, in part because of better than expected conditions. Taking a quick look at the HMON as well. HMON, similar situation I am noticing. It does take a little bit slower to make landfall, but around, I'd say, like midnight is when this makes landfall. Midnight Central Time, 1 a.m. Eastern Time is when it does, and it's expected to be a weak tropical storm. We're already at 45 miles per hour. Intensity guidance is pretty much not going to work with this right here. I moved this over. I can't believe this. Okay, perfect. We're back here. Let's go ahead and show the halves A run, and we'll go ahead and take a quick gander at this, taking a look at main sea level pressure winds and 10-meter winds. So the halves A run right here, you're having the system organizing, developing. The halves A does actually have the system peak at about 1,003 millibars and 60-mile-per-hour winds. So kind of the absolute peak that I'm personally thinking this will ultimately go moving forward. But by and large, that's kind of your situation before it makes landfall near Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and really brings the worst impacts to Wilmington, Cape Fear, a lot of these areas as well that we're paying attention to. And then kind of looking at the halves B run just to kind of neatly wrap this up in a nice little bow. Halves B is also pretty interesting as well, although not as aggressive as the halves A. Has this getting to around 47 knots, which would be supportive. I'd say a 50 to 55 mile per hour tropical storm. They don't do 55 miles per hour because of the knot setting instead of a mile per hour setting, but the system is expected to either make landfall in southern North Carolina or northern South Carolina at this current point, so we'll have to see how this will ultimately pan out. So that's kind of the big picture that we have with Chantal. We went pretty deep with this today. Now I do want to go ahead and take a quick look at some other stuff before we end this video, because I am watching the threats. I'm watching the tropics. We're looking at more concerning situations going on in parts of those regions. So let's go ahead and tune our attention to that for the last few minutes of this video. We're going to go ahead and start with the European. At this current point, the European right here, taking a quick look at the moisture content that we're seeing. We'll start with that. Look at the precipitable water. Look at the wind shear just a little bit, and then the trade winds to kind of neatly wrap this up in a nice little bow. Okay, the European is taking its time loading up the scenarios. This is not very helpful. I do apologize for all the delays that have been going on. Man, I think it's definitely not the internet. It's Tropical Tidbits. I think everyone is on Tropical Tidbits while I'm filming this video, so this is kind of making it hard for me to do my analysis for you guys. But looking at this right now, the main area I do want to hone in as this slowly starts to load in is the main development region right here as it continues to look. We're looking at a pretty big moisture surge across much of the region the next day or so that we're going to want to pay attention to. You're looking at the ITCZ starting to flare up. I do want to take a quick look at satellite imagery if I can pull that up. It might take a second to get me there, but I do want to go to Atlantic wide if I can while I'm waiting for everything to load up. But as we continue to see more of this, you're noticing the ITCZ starting to wake up. You're noticing more tropical waves from the Sahel starting to wake up. And then there's a low pressure system that the European is tagging right here, about 69 hours out. I'm not personally expecting this to do much in terms of development or anything like that, but we will need to pay attention to that going forward, because if this does ultimately maybe overperform a little bit, it'll allow the moisture, it'll allow the environment to get more moist and act a lot better than it has been previously, so we'll have to pay attention to that. But like I said, you have a tropical wave coming off the coast of Africa right here. This is not pausing, unfortunately, but you're also noticing the ITCZ is starting to wake up. Storm starting to fire off over here. That's something you're going to want to pay attention to. That's going to help moisten up the MDR and open it up more for business. As for this low pressure system, it's going to expect it to die off according to the European, but ultimately you're looking at a more moist environment going forward. And unfortunately, because of the constraints, I can't really show much more than that, but we are slowly getting there at this point. We're noticing more moisture. You are noticing a little bit more dry air as well across parts of the MDR as well, mainly due to the Sahara dust that's currently going on. But you are noticing a shift to more moisture, and especially when the MJO kicks in, that's going to be a bit of a problem going forward as more tropical waves come up. It's going to enhance the chances for development. So the first wave, you're going to see a big moisture surge. Then the second wave, you're going to see an even bigger surge by around the 14th of July coming off the coast of Africa that we're going to want to pay attention to. And we'll talk more about that in tomorrow's video when the European actually does show this. But ultimately, as to give it a quick teaser of this right here, you are noticing a much more precipitable water over here, noticing much more moisture. over here that we're going to want to pay attention to, and that persists across much of the Atlantic right here, despite everything that's been going on, and we'll continue to update you on that here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. With that being said, we're closing the video out right here. Please be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. If you want to help out, hang out, or ask us some questions, be sure to join the Storms United Discord server. The link to that is in the end screen. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.